Welcome to the Prison Professors Podcast. We serve people who face challenges with prosecution, sentencing, and prison. My co-founders are Sean Hopwood and Justin Paperny. My name is Michael Santos. We create digital content, and our team offers individual consulting services. We also assist agencies that want to improve outcomes. To learn how we can help you, text the word Prison Pro to 44222. Again, text Prison Pro to 44222 and get our free brochure. You can also visit us at prisonprofessors.com or contact Justin at 818-424-2220. Please subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. Send confirmation that you have rated our Prison Professors podcast. Leave us a review, and we'll send you a free digital book. We'll work hard to earn 5 stars. Stay tuned for a 20 to 30-minute episode with Prison Professors. Welcome to the Prison Professors Podcast. I am Michael Santos, and today I get to introduce you to my friend Eric Jensen. Eric has got a long history with the criminal justice system, but more importantly, he has got a story about how to change your life and become successful, even if you've got a history with the criminal justice system. So, Eric, thank you so much for taking time out of a Saturday morning to come and speak with us on the Prison Professors program. Maybe you could tell our audience a little bit about your background and what brought you into the criminal justice system the first time.
Well, first of all, thanks, Mike, for having me on. I appreciate it. It's a real pleasure to be able to reach out to those that are incarcerated right now and give them some form of hope and inspiration. My history is, it goes back over 30 years. You know, when I was a young child growing up in a very conflicting family, you know, filled with alcoholism and drug use and violence. I first picked up my first drug when I was 11 years old. I ran away from home. I ran away from an abusive relationship my mother had with someone. And so I became acclimated to the street life, and I started. And
that started when you were 11, you said?
Yes, started when I was 11 years old. And, I started experimenting with drugs, alcohol, even selling drugs for these guys that I was running away from my house, and I sought an escape, but the escape that I was running towards was, the same thing that was at my household, just on the street. It was just a different form. And by doing that, I grew up eventually into this cycle, this criminal thinking and this life of rebellion. I had lack of respect for authority. I didn't care about what anybody told me because, of what happened at my household. So I felt like, it was me against everybody else.
And so when did you first go into the criminal justice? You say you started at 11. Were you in the juvenile system early, or did you not come in until you were an adult?
Well, I started off with, the family court, the PINS petitions. And then it eventually, when I was 18 years old, I committed a robbery with 3 other friends. We were coming home from a party drunk, and we ran in a convenience store, robbed it for some cigarettes and some money. And I ended up doing 3.5 years in prison for that.
So when you went into the prison system the first time, you were 18 years old. What kind of mindset did you have when you went into the system?
Well, I still had the same mindset because I didn't care. I was on this self-destructive journey where it was I didn't care about anything. I didn't know any better than what I've been taught my whole life coming up was, it's me against everybody. Still that same mindset, still that same way of thinking. I didn't really take advantage of any of that time while I was away to educate myself to learn in anything different. Therefore, I couldn't do anything different because, in my case, I only did what I thought I knew, or what I did know, in that case.
And you're from New York. Were you inside the New York City Department of Corrections?
I wasn't inside the New York City Department of Corrections. I caught my case about an hour and 20 minutes north of the city. So I was in Ulster County Jail, which is in New York State, but then I went to the New York State Department of Corrections. So I wasn't in like Rikers Island or anything like that.
And when you were in the prison system, did you get any type of influence or anything along those lines that might suggest you could start building your life in some other way, or was it all about just adjusting to the prison environment?
Not this go around. At this go around, no, I didn't. I was still very young minded. I was an adolescent. You know, I believe that even though I was 18, I was probably mentally 12, 13, 14 years old, still living that same cycle where it was, you know, rebellion, the lack of respect for authority. So what I did was I had to adapt to this now prison lifestyle, this new culture that eventually would become who you know, I would become one with this culture to survive.
And so how did that result, or how did that behavior influence your adjustment when you finished that term after 3.5 years in prison?
It really, I don't think there was, you know, I didn't adjust. I remained the same even when I returned, because like I said, I didn't do anything to correct any of my behaviors or to put anything new into my body and my mind in order to be able to manifest anything positive or productive when I was released. You know, I believe that when I went away for those 3.5 years, it didn't make me any better. It didn't correct or rehabilitate me. It actually made me a better criminal, I believe.
So when you went back to society, did you have the mindset then that you were just going to stay engaged in crime and not get involved in the job market or anything like that?
Well, I didn't, you know, I don't think I came home. I don't think anybody comes home with the mentality of where, oh, I want to go back. But if you don't take the necessary steps to learn or educate yourself to do anything different, then you're not going to be able to do anything different. I did come home. Before I was incarcerated, I did have my barber's license, and I maintained that through when I was incarcerated. So I did come home. I did have a job as a barber, but after a while, it was, you know, I felt like it wasn't right. It was like I felt like I wanted more. You know, it was like that criminal thinking was still there. I wanted more money. I wanted to play catch up, because I went away. And now I come home and I see everybody having these, you know, whether it be these nice things or they're doing good in life, they're successful, they're, you know, they're making moves. But with me, it was like I came home to nothing again, and I had to start from scratch. And
so what was that like? What did you end up doing?
Well, I ended up going back into, came home, started cutting hair, and then I actually bumped into somebody that I was incarcerated with. And after a while, you know, it was just, we were going out, hanging out. And then eventually we started selling drugs again. We started, you know, violating our parole together, because we would go out of town selling drugs. And then eventually I went on the run from parole, and I ended up getting violated about 8 months after my release.
So you're home for 8 months, run into a fella from prison, back in the drug game, and then back in prison. And how long was that second term? How long did you have to stay in prison that time?
Well, I was when I caught my violation, I was waiting to go to my parole hearing, and I got caught with it was probably like a street value of $5 worth of marijuana inside of the jail while I was waiting. So they dropped my parole violation and just added another 1.5 to 3 years, another felony conviction onto my record for the possession of marijuana, which was back then a dangerous prison contraband. But since has been ruled, you know, they changed the whole laws on that. But yeah, I ended up doing an additional 1.5 to 3 years for that.
And then tell us about what happened when you returned to society the second time.
It was pretty much the same as the first time. You know, even though this time I felt I didn't want to go back to prison, but then again, I still didn't do anything to prevent that. You know, I didn't do anything to, how can you be successful? How am I going to be successful if I don't have any education? I don't have the networks. My networks are all negative. You know, they were all street hustlers going back and forth to prison, or whoever they may be. They weren't positive influences. There was no positive information going into my brain, into my body, except for what was around me, my environment, you know. And still, when I came home, yeah, I didn't want to go back. I didn't, but I did. I did end up going back. This time, you know, it was for, I was cutting hair. I had a barbershop, And once again, we were doing good. And then these guys came into the barbershop with some stolen property. And, we bought some stolen property off them. And then eventually it was, I thought in my mind, I created a business out of this because I was buying the stolen property from them and now selling it for 2, 3, 4, 5 times the price of what I bought it for. So now I created this criminal business, this criminal enterprise, if you must. And then eventually I got wrapped up in that as well.
And did that result in another charge, or what happened? Oh
yeah, that was a big charge. Because the proceeds of the crime, usually it would be just buying and possessing stolen property. But in my case, they were trying to say that I was paying people to go commit these crimes, which in fact wasn't true. So I fought my case for 3 years inside the county jail. And then eventually 34 of the 36 charges were dismissed. And I received a 3 to 6 in the New York State Department of Corrections.
So you were how old when you started that sentence?
I was 25. I was 25.
And did you get out when you were 28 then, or 29?
I got out when I was 28. Correct. Did
you have any different mindset on that third time?
I did. This time, I actually started literature. Reading and writing was pretty much what helped me to change my life, because during these times I was so down and depressed, and I wanted to give up. I just couldn't deal with it anymore. I knew there was something better, and I knew I wanted better. I just didn't know how to obtain it. So what I did was I looked for it. I started looking for it. I started reading, and by reading, I started reading these books, and I wanted to write a book because I was like, I want to tell somebody my story, and I want people to know who I truly am. But as I started to write, I started to realize that, everything that I wrote was my diagram for what I needed to change, because you can't lie to yourself, So by writing these things down, now I went back and I was rereading, and I'm like, I am the bad guy. I need to do something, and I need to change. So I started picking apart and doing a self-assessment on myself and trying to really, work on these things that I saw like character flaws, more than character flaws. They're a part of me. It's pretty much, if you grow up in something, it's no longer just like, a flaw. It's pretty much, it's ingrained inside you, and you have to do some serious work to change it.
One of the reasons I wanted you to tell your story, Eric, is because I believe that people who are locked up, people who are in prison, or people who are going inside, many of them go in with the same mindset that you described the first time when you were 18 and the second time. But if they could hear stories of how that resulted in this cycle of failure and struggle and difficulty upon release, then they might make people more receptive to hearing from people who actually changed their life. And you certainly have changed your life and become successful on a grand scale. And that happened because of the changes you started to make during your third time in prison. Am I correct?
Correct.
And those changes that you said, they could have just as easily begun on the first time if you could have just gotten influenced by somebody that you respected and admired and wanted to learn from? Or do you think that you were just not ready? Or do you think there's anybody who could have communicated this message to you?
I think as I matured, I became more, I wanted something different. But when I was young, I think I was a knucklehead. And I would have probably, not wanted that, because, I was kind of guy, oh, you can't tell me anything. I think I know everything. And eventually I just had to live through my own, my own bad decisions. And then eventually it gave me that pain, that pain was enough for me to say, hey, listen, I need to do something about this. But, then again, I don't know if everyone's story isn't the same. Everyone doesn't come from the same place that I came from. So I can only speak for what I think I would have said back then, because there was people that used to come into the jails, the priests or the counselors, and, you just, I just want to get out of here. That's pretty much all. I wanted to just get out of jail. I didn't care about anything because I didn't love myself. I didn't because, you know, I didn't grow up in a family where love was shown. So I didn't really know the definition of it. I didn't know what it meant to be compassionate or nurtured. You know, I had no clue. That was like you know, it was a mystery to me.
So you started changing by reading and writing, and how did that influence your journey both through the last time that you served in prison and your return to society?
Well, I think my past was a roadmap for what I did not want to do. So by writing it out, I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to do the exact opposite of what I've already done. So by doing that, by writing and reading, more importantly, I think it's like taking a breath. When you read, you're putting stuff into your body, into your mind. And when you write, you're exhaling and you're letting all the old out, or putting your thoughts out into the world, into the universe. And I believe by doing that, it's like cleansing. It really is cleansing for me anyway. It's very, it's therapeutic. And it's, I think education is the number one thing, and the number one, you know, focal point that I had to use to actually change.
But you did change, and then you came back to society. When did you get out the last time, and what has your life been like since you've come home?
Well, I did go back on a parole violation after I did those 3 years. I had a parole violation, and I ended up that's when I ended up in Clinton Correctional Facility. But it was pretty much the same. That place, they sent me to a maximum security facility for when I had to do my violation. And that was like really the straw that broke the camel's back. I felt, you know, completely broken. I felt like this is where you need to rebuild from, because when you're completely broken, then now you can create that new foundation to build on, you know, if you're not holding on to anything from your past. And I had to learn that. And in that place, it was really hard, but it also showed me like where I'm going to die, where I'm going to end up if I don't correct my behaviors in totality. You know, I had to change everything, my whole way of thinking. I cut out the negative people from around me, even in the prison system. I mean, you know, I didn't deal with anybody, the war stories, you know, the gambling, the drugs, whatever it may be. I stayed away from it all, and I focused on myself. My cell was like my classroom, and that's where I believe that transformation took place.
Tell us about the experiences you had after you finished that term.
Well, after I finished that term, I came home, you know, and life was still, I was 2012. So I was 31. I was 31.
So you're 31 years old in 2012. You come back home. What's going on in your life?
Well, when I'm coming home to nothing again, you know, and it's not like I'm new to this, you know, because I've done it so many times before, but I just had a new game plan, and I knew what I had to do in order to stay out, and I wanted to be successful, you know, and without hard work, success does not come, you know, it's not going to come, whether it be physical manual labor or whether it be intellectual labor, you know, building up your mind and your intelligence. So what I did was I worked. I stayed on couches. I went from couch to couch to couch, but eventually I saved up enough money, and I got an apartment with a friend of mine. And from there, I still worked. And then I happened to meet.
What kind of work were you doing?
I was still doing barbering, and I was also doing construction.
Okay. And I know that you're doing other things right now.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about what you're doing now and how you were able to transition into that new role.
Okay. Well, right now I'm a technical advisor, consulting producer on a project directed by Ben Stiller. It's titled Escape at Dannemora. It's with Benicio del Toro, Patricia Arquette, Paul Dano. And it's it'll be aired on Showtime, hopefully sometime at the end of this year. There's the tentative date. I'm also acting in the series as well. But transitioning into that was, you know, I used my life experience, something that, you know, you don't gain from books, you don't gain from anything but going through it. And I believe that every man, every woman has this power inside them to use what they've been through in life to become successful, whether it be their knowledge, of this, or, just the connections. And that's what I've learned a lot as well, is that, it's the people we surround ourselves with, the like-mindedness, I try to surround myself with people who are where I'm trying to be, or who are past that. Because in my eyes, those are the people that I learn the most from, because they have already achieved or surpassed where I'm trying to go.
Yeah, so the message I'm getting from you is that the people we associate ourselves with make a huge difference. That is it applicable whether we're in prison or whether we're outside. If we're in prison and we're hanging around guys that are, getting involved in things that keep us, locked in struggle, that's what we're going to have as a lifestyle locked in struggle. If we immerse ourselves in books and make our cells our classroom, we can begin putting ourselves on a better position, and then new opportunities are going to open. But I think a lot of our listeners are kind of blown away right now. They're hearing that you just got out of prison about 5 years ago, and now you are working directly with some major Hollywood stars. How did that transition unfold?
Well, when back in 2015, these two guys, they escaped from prison from Clinton Correctional Facility. And it just so happens that it was two guys that I knew and I used to work with inside the tailor shop in Clinton Correctional Facility. So when this news broke, it was a media frenzy, because, this was one of the most notorious prisons in New York State. And these guys were in there for some pretty heinous things. One guy shot a cop 15 times, ran him over with a car, and the other guy chopped his boss up. But anyway, so these weren't this was a manhunt. This was a huge deal that happened. And when I saw on the news and the media that these guys were going on there, that didn't know these guys, that never been in this facility, I reached out to a friend I had that's a journalist, and I ended up doing a small piece with CBS. And then a few days later, the New York Post called me. And after the New York Post called, I ended up doing over 120 news media interviews with pretty much every imaginable network. And while I was on Anderson Cooper one night, I received a tweet on Twitter from Brett Johnson, and he asked me if he could send me an email, and he did. And me and Brett put together these scripts since 2015 to 2017, when it was finally greenlit by Showtime. We were sending scripts back and forth about this project, and we created an 8-episode limited series for Showtime, which is, I never thought that it would come of anything. I've always had my doubts. I'd always tried to stay positive, but I knew from my past that I was always so used to the hurt and the heartbreak, the pain, that when it's not there, it's almost like something's missing. But now, I've learned to, now I'm embracing the good, the love, and that's what I look for. So when that's missing now I know, something's wrong.
I got to say that there are patterns that I hear in your story, and there are patterns that I hope that all of our listeners are realizing as well. Earlier in your journey, on your pathway from struggle to prosperity, you were talking about meeting people, and those people opened opportunities for you, whether it was working at a barbershop, the people that you met were stealing, they brought you goods, you started selling them, it led you into the prison system. You changed your mind while you were in the prison system by reading and writing, and you started applying that. When an opportunity opened, you were in a good position to seize upon that. Anybody could have, there are a lot of people that got out of Dannemora or Clinton or were out of prison and could have responded, but you were in a good position to do it. Then when somebody tweeted you, you were ready to take that opportunity and turn that into a screenplay or a series of screenplays. The fellow who wrote you said his name was Brad Johnson?
Brett Johnson. Yeah, he's been a writer he wrote Ray Donovan for 3.5 seasons, Mad Men for 3 seasons as well.
So this is a guy you did not know before. He just happened to, you put yourself in a position where he did see you, and when he reached out, you didn't know who he was. Is that right?
Correct. No, I didn't know who he was, and I believe that if I was, number one, if I was still in my same mind frame as I was years ago in my, in my life of when I was running around crazy, I believe that I wouldn't have been prepared nor knew how to speak to or, even hold a conversation where, you know, they would entrust me with such a responsibility, you know. But now it's all about, it's how you present yourself, and it's your preparation, because you have to be prepared for things that come your way. People say luck. I believe it's just when the opportunity meets your preparation, and that's when you can succeed off of that opportunity. Because if you're not prepared for it, how are you going to do it? I mean, they're hiring heart surgeons right now, but I don't know how to do heart surgery. But if I did, I could go apply for a job as a heart surgeon, you know, but I'm not prepared for that. So I believe that's
the other important message there is you mentioned that you'd given 120 interviews, and I know what my experience is in dealing with the media. Maybe yours is the same or different, but I would argue you probably didn't get paid for any of those.
No.
That was your all volunteer time. Is that correct?
That's completely correct. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because there was times that I did want to quit, because I'm like, you know what? I'm not getting paid for this. But then I spoke it over with my son's mother, and, you know, she's like, I stand by whatever you want to do, because I wasn't working at that time. And so she was the one that was pretty much supporting me and holding me down. And she was like, you know, what do you think is going to come of this? And I said, I think something good is going to come of this. I think they're going to make something out of this, and I want to be a part of it. I know this is going to happen. So it was hard because they were not paying me. But at the same time, it's after those many interviews and working on the scripts for 2 years with these guys, I finally did. They paid me for those back years. So it was, you know, in a way, I don't want to say a test, but in a way I do. It kind of like tested my work ethic and my drive and my will to want to succeed.
It's the message of investing in yourself. And you started it once you started investing yourself in a positive way by first reading and finding mentors through books, and then investing the time to write. That was all an investment. And that investment caused you to think differently. And you had a mind shift change. That mind shift change put you on a path to say, I'm going to have a strong work ethic. I'm going to work as a barber, construction. And when an opportunity opened, you continued to invest in yourself. And this is the message that we need to give to as many people as we can who are locked up, so that they can recognize the decisions they make inside have a direct relationship on what they can become when they get out. And I'm really impressed by you, Eric. And I'm just, you know, really want to let the world know that we can look to you as a role model, that regardless of what bad decisions we've made in the past, we can begin sowing seeds for a better life. And you've certainly done that. It would have been awesome if you could have did it when you were 18 or when you were 25, but it's never too early and it's never too late to begin sowing seeds for a better life. And I'm just thrilled that you chose to share your story with our audience.
Thank you, Michael. I really appreciate that. And you said something I just want to touch on real quick about, you know, our worst deeds don't define who we are, you know, unless we continue to keep doing them. But if we can correct them, we can start, you know, we can benefit and learn from those mistakes and become better people.
Yeah, when you were standing up for count and going through the prison system, reception or jails or prisons, or getting sentenced to getting classified for maximum security, I got to believe that there was never a thought in your mind that you'd be dealing with major Hollywood stars. But here you are doing it right now. And are those your mentors right now as well?
They are. They've told me a lot. It's pretty much, I'm going to film school right now, and they pretty much are my teachers. Ben has been great to me. He's opened up a lot of new things that now I can see, like, you know, that I never would have been able to see before. He's taught me so much, and he's been really great, you know, and his veracity to tell this story, you know, the best way, the truthful way, not commercialized, not Hollywoodish. This is going to be, I feel it's going to be looked upon as like one of those Shawshanks, one of those American Me's, one of those movies we look back on and we're going to say, you know, that story was told correctly. And I'm so glad to be a part of it.
Well, we're glad that you chose to set aside a little bit of your busy schedule to inspire other people in prison or other people who are going through the prison system. And I just want to leave the last words with you, Eric. We've come to the end of this podcast. Are there any words that you'd like to say to some of our listeners who may be just going through the criminal justice system right now?
I would like to tell everybody, you know, first of all, you know, keep your head up in there, but also, you know, don't be afraid to surrender. Don't be afraid to destroy some of those old relationships. Don't be afraid to destroy some of those morals that you have, because, you know, when we bring ourselves to our lowest point and we fully surrender, that's when we can truly start to rebuild our lives. We can start to rebuild our relationships, and we can become successful. Prepare yourself for what you want to do. Even if you don't know what you want to do, educate yourself. It doesn't mean book smarts. It doesn't mean, you know, you have to be good at calculus or whatever it is, but put life skills. Read books that are going to be, you know, have something in them. My favorite book to read is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. It really changed the way I thought. It changed the way I viewed life, and it changed the things that I put out into the universe. Because what we put out, believe it or not, is what we're going to get back. And please, if you guys are coming home, if you guys have family members that want to reach out to me, please feel free. My Twitter is @EricJJensen81. My email is ericjjensen81@gmail.com. Please feel free to reach out anytime. And, you know, I do respond to everybody.
You sure do. He responded to me, and I'm so thankful that he took the time to share his message with the Prison Professors podcast. I hope that you'll come back after your show airs on Showtime, because I know a lot of people will be inspired by you, a man who changed his life after 3 or 4 terms inside of the prison system, now a successful guy dealing in Hollywood. Thank you so much, Eric, for sharing your story with us.
Thank you so much, Michael. It's appreciated.
So I'm Michael with PrisonProfessors.com. On behalf of my partners, Sean Hopwood and Justin Paperny, we want to let you know that regardless of what challenges you're going through, you can start preparing yourself for success. If you want more information on our work, please visit PrisonProfessors.com or text Prison Pro to 44222. That's text Prison Pro to 44222, and we'll let you know some steps that you can take to emerge successful from this journey, just like Eric Jensen had. We'll be back tomorrow with another inspiring guest. Thank you.